Mom showed off my secret house without permission, so I smiled and changed the locks. You know that feeling when your phone buzzes at work and for some reason, you just know it's not going to be good? I was mid-cleaning Mrs. Patterson's teeth when I glanced at my security app, and there it was, an image that made my stomach drop into my shoes. My mother, on my porch, with my sister-in-law, Amber, and some woman I didn't recognize. Mom was fishing in her purse, fumbling. Then God help me, she pulled out a key to my house. I froze. This wasn't just any house. This was the place I'd built in secret, the house I'd saved for over 5 years to afford the house no one in my family knew about because I wanted just one thing in my life that wasn't subject to their constant advice. And here was my mother unlocking the front door like she owned it. I excused myself from Mrs. Patterson with a shaky smile. Sorry, family emergency, and bolted from the office. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tightly on the drive over that I left little crescent marks from my nails. My head spun with questions. How does she even know? How did she get a key? By the time I pulled into the driveway, they were gone. But the signs of intrusion were everywhere. My front door was ajar. Inside the refrigerator stood open cabinet doors left hanging. They had walked through every corner of the place I had poured myself into. But the note on the counter is what gutted me. Brinley, honey, I know you're upset, but this is for the best. Amber and Denise, my realtor friend, think this place has real potential. We'll talk tonight. Love, Mom. P.S. Cute cat, like that excused everything. I sat on the couch. I'd worked overtime shifts to buy the couch I had carried piece by piece into this house by myself and stared at the words until my hands shook. This wasn't just about a key. It wasn't even about the house. It was about a lifetime of being treated like the child who couldn't possibly handle adult choices. My older brother James had a down payment gifted to him. My younger sister Paige got her MFA paid for. I got lectures about being responsible. So I had been responsible. I had scraped and saved, worked long shifts as a dental hygienist, shot weddings and newborn photos on weekends, skipped vacations, eaten ramen noodles more times than I want to admit. And finally, I had enough to buy this house a craftsman, with a wraparound porch, hardwood floors, and a kitchen where I imagined baking pies on Sunday mornings. And because I knew exactly how my family operated, I told no one. Not until I was ready. Not until it was mine in every way. Now my mother had violated that. She'd barged into the one sacred space I thought I could keep untouched. My phone rang. Of course it was her. Oh, good, you got my note, she said, cheerful, as though she hadn't just broken into my home. Listen, sweetie, don't be upset. This is for your own good. That mortgage is too much for you to handle, and Amber and Denise agree. This property would do much better on the market. Mom, I cut her off. How did you get a key? Well, Mrs. Kellerman's daughter is in my book club, and when she mentioned selling to a young Hartford girl, I put 2 and 2 together. I've been so worried about you living there alone in that neighborhood with those bills. You stole a key? I whispered. I borrowed it, she corrected quickly. And honestly, Brinley, you should be thanking me. James and Amber could help you by investing. You could even rent it to them, lighten your burden. Lighten my burden. She said it like I was a child who'd bitten off more than I could chew. Not a woman who had carved this life with her own blood and sweat. When I hung up, my whole body trembled with fury. The betrayal was bone deep, not just in what she'd done, but in what it said that even now, at 28, with a deed in my name, my family still didn't believe I was capable. And right then, something inside me hardened. This wasn't going to be another moment where I swallowed my pride, let them help, and quietly resented it. No, not this time. Not with this house. I pulled out my phone and scheduled a locksmith for the morning. If my mother wanted to treat my home like an open house, she was about to learn that the locks only answered to me. Ask yourself, what would you do if your own mother broke into your sanctuary and handed the keys to strangers? Would you let it go as misguided love, or would you finally, after years of being dismissed, decide that enough was enough? For me, the decision was already made. Long before the note on my counter, before my mother's key scraped my lock, this house was already the most important secret I'd ever kept. I started saving for it when I was 22. Back then, James was being handed a down payment check the size of my entire annual salary. Paige was packing up for Chicago tuition, wired directly from my parents' account to her university. And me, I was standing in my tiny studio apartment, running numbers on the back of an envelope, realizing I'd have to work double shifts if I ever wanted more than 4 walls and a leaking faucet. So I worked them. I worked until my fingers ached from cleaning teeth all day, then traded my scrubs for a camera bag on weekends. Weddings, baby showers, school portraits. I told myself each paycheck was a brick, and if I stacked enough of them, I'd build something no one could take away from me. 5 years of saying no to vacations, of patching up my car instead of replacing it, of eating pasta and frozen vegetables more nights than I want to count. Friends would joke that I was cheap. I wasn't cheap. I was determined. And then one afternoon, I saw it. The listing for 847 Maple Ridge Drive. A 3-bedroom craftsman with a porch swing, hardwood floors that creaked in all the right ways. A fireplace with a carved mantel. It was the house I'd sketched in my notebooks at 12 years old, back when dreaming felt safe. I scheduled a showing alone. Walking through the rooms felt like walking into a memory I hadn't lived yet. When Mrs. Kellerman, the owner, pressed the keys into my hand, at closing she said, "This house needs someone who'll love it like I did." I nodded, too choked up to answer. I didn't tell anyone. Not my parents, not James, not Paige, not even Savannah, my best friend, who would have squealed with me and popped champagne. The silence wasn't because I didn't want to share it, was because I knew sharing would mean explaining, justifying, defending. And I was so tired of defending. Instead, I furnished it in secret. Night by night, after long days at the clinic, I drove over with boxes. A coffee table I found at a secondhand shop, refinished until it gleamed. A thrifted dining set I sanded and painted. String lights in the backyard that glowed like fireflies. I planted tulip bulbs out front, imagining how they bloom in the spring. I even brought Muffin home, a scrappy ginger tabby from the shelter he trotted into the house like he knew it was ours. He claimed the sunniest patch by the kitchen window, as his throne purring like a little motor while I painted walls. Those months were mine, quiet, stolen, sacred. I'd drive from my cramped apartment, unlock the door, and breathe easier. I'd sit on the porch swing with a cup of tea, listening to the cicadas, and feel like for the first time in my life, I wasn't just existing, I was building. And all the while, I carried this plan like a glowing ember in my chest. At Christmas dinner, I would finally reveal it. I pictured setting down my fork, smiling at my family, and saying casually, "By the way, I bought a house." I pictured the silence, then their shock, then their realization that I was more than just the practical one, that I could do something extraordinary without their money, without their permission. But secrets are fragile things. They crack the moment someone decides your boundaries don't matter. That day in the dental chair when I saw my mother on my porch with a key, I realized my perfect plan had been stolen before I could even speak it. And something else sank in heavier than rage. I'd been right not to tell them. Because they didn't see me as someone capable of owning anything, not even the decisions that shaped my own life. That night, as I repotted the tulip bulbs my mother had nudged with her careless feet, I made a vow. This house would not become another chapter in the Hartford family saga folded into James's investments, or Paige's stories about my sister's place. This house was mine. But ownership, I was learning, wasn't just about a deed. It was about fighting for the right to protect it. The night after the break-in, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Mom first, then James, then Dad, with his usual, let's be reasonable text that always really meant, give in, and let's pretend this never happened. When I finally picked up, Mom's voice was syrupy sweet, the kind she used whenever she knew she'd crossed a line, but wanted to frame it as love. "Sweetheart, I know you're upset," she began, "but you have to understand this is for your own good. That mortgage has to be stretching you thin. You've always been ambitious, Brinley, but sometimes ambition isn't practical." There it was, practical, the word that had stalked me since childhood. I bit my tongue so hard it almost bled. "Mom, you broke into my house. That's not practical. That's insane." "I borrowed a key," she corrected quickly. "Amber and Denise just wanted to see the place. Amber and James are thinking about an investment property, and Denise says it could do really well on the market. We're trying to help you." Help! That word always felt like a knife disguised as a hug. "Help me by respecting my privacy," I snapped. "Don't step foot in my home again unless I invite you." She went quiet, then sighed, like I was the one being dramatic. "Fine. But don't expect us to bail you out when reality hits. You'll see, honey. You'll be back at our door asking for help." The call ended and I sat there shaking. Not because I doubted myself, but because I realized how fast she had twisted the crime into my failure. The next day, James showed up at the clinic during my lunch break. He leaned against my car like some sitcom big brother waiting to deliver a life lesson. "Breen, come on," he said, using the nickname that always felt like a leash. "Mom just got carried away. You know how she is. She worries. She broke in James." "Okay, but technically no. Not technically. She unlocked my door without permission. That's not worry. That's control." He rubbed the back of his neck, shifting uncomfortably. "Look, all I'm saying is maybe you should have told us about the house. Families don't keep secrets like this. We're supposed to share big decisions." I laughed. "You mean like when Dad gave you a down payment gift without consulting me? Or when Paige's tuition got wired while I was eating canned soup? That kind of sharing?" His face reddened, but he didn't argue. Instead, he sighed. "Bryn, we're family. We just want what's best for you." I looked him dead in the eye. "What's best for me is you staying out of my house." He stared at me like I just kicked a puppy, like I was the villain for refusing to let them rewrite my life again. Then he muttered, "Jesus, Bryn, don't be so dramatic," and walked away. That night, Dad finally called. His voice was calm, almost rehearsed. "Pumpkin, let's not turn this into a war. Your mother had good intentions. You know how much she loves you. Love doesn't give you the right to take a key that isn't yours." A pause. "Well, maybe she crossed the line, but she's still your mother. And when push comes to shove, family is all we've got." I looked around my living room at the lamp I'd bought secondhand and rewired at the photos I'd hung at Muffin sprawled across the couch like he owned it, and realized how wrong he was. I already had everything I needed. Before bed, I booked the locksmith for 9 a.m. sharp. I was done arguing, done explaining. My house wasn't a group project. It was mine. And tomorrow, for the first time, I'd make sure the locks finally knew it too. The locksmith's van pulled up at 8:55 sharp, and I nearly hugged the man when he stepped out. His name was Jonathan, stocky build, mid-40s, with a weary look that told me he'd seen every family dispute imaginable. "Boundary issue?" he asked after I gave him the short version. Something like that, I said. He nodded knowingly. "Family's the worst. Good for you for taking control of your space." Within an hour, every lock on the house was replaced. The front door, the back door, even the gate to the garden. Jonathan handed me 3 brand new keys. They were cold and heavy in my palm, small pieces of metal that suddenly felt like weapons of freedom. Now only the people you choose will get in, he said. For the first time since I discovered Mom's note on my counter, I exhaled without shaking. That evening, as if the universe couldn't resist testing me, the inevitable happened. Brinley Marie, Hartford. You open this door right now. Mom's voice thundered through the new deadbolt as she pounded on the doorbell like it had insulted her. Muffin hissed and bolted under the couch. I sat on my sofa, wineglass in hand, watching her through the window. Her lipstick was smudged hair, pinned too tightly, eyes blazing like a woman who believed she was the victim. Mom, you need to stop, I called through the door. You changed the locks. Her tone was pure outrage. Normal people don't change their locks to keep their mothers out. I laughed bitterly. Normal mothers don't break into their daughter's house and give tours like it's on the market. There was silence. Then the sound of her voice switching gears softer now. Honey, I was worried. That neighborhood that mortgaged too much for you alone? I just wanted to make sure you had options. There it was again. Options. The word she used when what she really meant was control. You didn't trust me to know what I needed? I said, my voice steady. You thought you could still rearrange my life like furniture. But this house is mine. Mom. Mine. Don't be stubborn, Brinley, she snapped. James and Amber could help you if you just... No. My voice cut through hers like a blade. If you want to visit, you call first. If I say no, you respect that. That's the new script. For a moment, I thought she might actually break the glass in the window just to prove a point. Instead, she pressed her lips together, turned on her heel, and stormed off into the night. Through the curtain, I watched her climb into Dad's old pickup and slam the door. The engine roared to life, and then she was gone. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, a hollowness spread through me like frost. I'd won the battle, sure, but in doing so, had I just declared war on my own family. I looked around my quiet living room. The string lights, the lavender candle burning low, Muffin peeking from under the couch. This was my sanctuary, my choice. But as I curled into the silence, the question that haunted me wasn't whether I could protect my house. It was whether I could protect my heart from the loneliness that came with it. The silence after that night was deafening. No calls from Mom, no texts from James. Even Paige, my sister who usually floated above the drama, kept her distance. Just one brief message. Maybe just apologize and move on. Apologize. For what? For wanting privacy. For refusing to let them play landlord with my life. The word burned like acid every time I thought of it. Days bled together. I buried myself in projects around the house, painting the guest room lavender, arranging the gallery wall of my photography. Installing shelves I measured 3 times to get right. Muffin followed me from room to room, tail flicking, like he sensed my restlessness. Each nail hammered into the wall felt like an act of defiance, a reminder. This is mine. This space, this life, I earned it. But pride can't fill an empty dining table. There were nights I caught myself setting out 2 plates instead of 1. I'd pour a second glass of wine without thinking, then stare at it until it went warm. The satisfaction of ownership of boundaries was real, but so was the gnawing ache of being cut off. That's when Savannah showed up. My best friend since 7th grade, carrying takeout from Luigi's and a bottle of red. She didn't knock. She banged on the door like the SWAT team. Open up, hermit, she said when I let her in. She kicked off her shoes, spread the food across my kitchen island, and eyed me like I was her patient instead of her friend. So I had to hear from my hairdresser that you bought a house and are in a cold war with your family, Rudy. I laughed for the first time in weeks. It sounded foreign like someone else's voice. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone, I said. I just wanted something of my own, something no one could criticize or fix. Savannah forked up a piece of chicken parm and pointed it at me. And instead, you're brooding in your castle like a Victorian widow. Brian, you've always been the responsible one. You deserve this house. Don't let them make you feel guilty for finally taking up space. Her words hit deeper than she probably realized, because that's exactly what it was about taking up space. For so long, I'd lived as if I needed permission to exist, always checking to see if my choices fit the family mold. Now here I was, with my own house, my own life, my own silence. And it terrified me. Savannah stayed until midnight drinking wine and making Muffin chase string until he collapsed in a ginger heap. When she left the house, didn't feel quite so hollow. Still, when I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, one thought kept circling. What if they never come back? What if protecting my boundaries means losing my family forever? 3 days later, I walked out of the dental office. After a long shift and nearly dropped my keys. Parked across the lot was James's Chevy Silverado. But it wasn't James behind the wheel, it was Amber. She rolled the window down, her blonde hair, catching the afternoon sun, her smile unusually subdued. Can we talk? She asked. I hesitated. Amber and I had never been close. We were polite at family dinners, but she was always firmly in James's corner. She was the type who knew how to light up a room, while I often felt like the wallpaper no one noticed. What about? I asked, cautiously. Amber gestured to the passenger seat. Just 5 minutes, please. Against my better judgment, I climbed in. She smelled like vanilla and anxiety, her hands gripping the steering wheel tight. I owe you an apology, she said quickly. A big one. James doesn't know I'm here, and if he finds out, he'll be furious. But I can't keep this in anymore. I folded my arms. Go on. Amber exhaled. Your mom didn't just randomly decide to show me your house. I asked her to. The words hit me like a slap. You what? Not in the way you think. She rushed to explain, her voice trembling. James and I, we're drowning. The company's in worse shape than he'll admit. We're behind on the mortgage, credit cards maxed. I thought stupidly that maybe you'd be willing to rent out a room or let us house sit sometimes. When your mom mentioned you'd bought a house, I panicked. I asked her to show me around. I didn't know she'd bring a realtor or make it into whatever that was. I stared at her trying to process. James, the golden boy, the one who had everything struggling? Why didn't he just come to me? Amber gave a short, humorless laugh. Pride. He's supposed to be the successful one, remember? Asking his little sister for help would crush him. There it was again. Little sister. Even Amber saw me that way. I'm not little anymore, I said quietly. Amber's face softened. I know. Honestly, Brinley, your house is beautiful. You should be proud of yourself. I just wanted you to know the truth, even if James hates me for it. We sat in silence, the weight of secrets filling the cab. My brother's perfect life wasn't so perfect after all. And suddenly, this wasn't just about a house. It was about the image my family worked so hard to protect, even if it meant tearing me down. Amber turned to me as I opened the door. Just don't tell James I came to you. He'd never forgive me. I nodded, stepping out onto the pavement. But inside, a fire was beginning to burn. For the first time, I realized I wasn't just fighting for my home. I was fighting for the truth. The idea came to me in a rush, equal parts reckless and liberating. If my family wanted to treat my house like a bargaining chip, then I'd force them to look at it for what it really was mine. So on Saturday morning, I sent a group text. Family dinner. My place. Sunday at 6. Dress casual. I'm cooking. The replies rolled in almost instantly. Paige sent a confused string of emojis. James wrote, "Are you sure mom called twice?" which I ignored. Even dad chimed in with his usual neutral, "We'll be there." All day Sunday, I cooked like my life depended on it. Lasagna, layered with ricotta garlic bread. Toasted to perfection salad from the tomatoes and cucumbers I'd grown in my tiny backyard. By the time the doorbell rang, the house smelled like an Italian restaurant and muffins sat on the windowsill like a watchful guard. When I opened the door, they all stood there awkwardly, mom and dad in the front. James and Amber behind them, Paige trailing last with her messy bun and beat-up Subaru keys in hand. "Welcome to my home," I said, stepping aside. I gave them the tour they didn't deserve, pointing out the restored fireplace, the lavender-painted guest room, the string lights in the backyard. I showed them Muffin's favorite perch and the gallery wall of photos I'd taken myself. This time, it wasn't mom's realtor friend narrating. It was me. Dad ran his hand along the mantelpiece, his contractor's eyes softening with appreciation. "It's gorgeous," he admitted almost reluctantly. Paige whistled low. "Bryn, you did all this yourself, damn." Mom said nothing. Her eyes darted around like she was searching for flaws. We sat down to dinner, and I laid it all out. How I'd saved for 5 years. How I'd researched neighborhoods, mortgage rates, every single decision. How I'd chosen this house, not for approval, but for myself. "But why didn't you tell us?" Mom finally asked, her voice small. "We could have helped." Because I wanted to prove I didn't need help, I answered simply. Every choice I've made, someone in this family had an opinion about how I could have done it better. I wanted one thing that was completely mine. James shifted uncomfortably. "We don't do that." "Really?" I cut him off. "When I started my photography business, you called it a hobby. When I got promoted, Dad said it was good experience for something more serious. When I bought my car, Mom lectured me about why a sedan was more practical than my Jeep. So yes, we do that." Silence, thick and heavy. Amber, to her credit, broke it first. "I owe you an apology too. About the house, about the rental idea, that was me. Not your mom." James's head snapped toward her, betrayal flashing in his eyes. "Amber." "No," she interrupted firmly. "She deserves the truth." The room went still. For once, it wasn't me who looked like the problem child. I looked around the table at my family, who suddenly seemed smaller than I remembered. "I love you," I said, "but I need you to understand something. This house isn't your safety net or your project or your investment plan. It's my life. And you don't get to rewrite that." No one spoke, not even Mom. For the first time in my life, the room was mine. The lasagna sat cooling between us untouched. The air was thick, charged like the silence before a storm. I could feel everyone's eyes darting between me and Amber like they were waiting for a fuse to burn down. James finally broke it. "You went behind my back." His voice was sharp low, the kind of tone that made me flinch even though it wasn't directed at me. Amber's chin trembled, but she held his stare. "I had to. You weren't being honest with anyone, not even yourself. We're drowning James, and I thought maybe Brinley could—" She trailed off, shame coloring her face. My brother looked like someone had just cracked his armor. The golden boy, always perfect, always in control, was exposed in front of us all. His shoulders slumped. "I didn't want you to know. Any of you. Especially not Mom and Dad." Mom shifted in her chair, lips pressed tight. She hated having the family illusion shattered at her dinner table. "I would have helped if you asked," I said quietly. James shook his head, his voice cracking. "That's not how it works, Bryn. You're the youngest. I'm supposed to be the one who helps you, not the other way around." There it was again, the hierarchy I'd spent my whole life suffocating under. The roles carved in stone. James the provider. Paige the dreamer. Me the afterthought. "Maybe that's the problem," I said. My voice was steady, but my heart was pounding. "You've all decided who I am and what I'm capable of without ever actually seeing me. You don't get to tell me what I can or can't handle anymore." Dad finally spoke up, his voice softer than I expected. "Brinley, your mom worries. That's all this is. She doesn't mean harm. But I was done sugarcoating. No, Dad. This isn't worry. This is control. Mom got a key to my house without asking. She brought strangers inside. She left me a note like I was a child who needed permission. That's not concern. That's ownership. And I'm not hers to own. Mom's face went pale, then flushed a deep red. How dare you speak to me like that? She whispered, her voice shaking with a mixture of rage and hurt. Everything I've ever done has been for this family, for you. I leaned forward, my eyes locked on hers. Then ask yourself, was it really for me, or was it for the image of the perfect family you're so desperate to protect? The words landed like a bomb. Paige gasped softly. Amber lowered her eyes. James just stared at his plate silent for once. Mom didn't answer. She couldn't, because deep down we all knew the truth. That dinner wasn't just a meal, it was a reckoning. The moment the cracks in our carefully polished facade finally split wide enough to see what lay beneath. And once you see the truth, you can never go back. When the plates were finally cleared, no one lingered. Dinner had ended in a haze of tension so thick, it clung to the walls. One by one, they slipped out the door without the usual hugs, without the small talk about traffic or weather. James didn't even look at me as he left. Amber gave me a fleeting, almost apologetic glance before following him. Paige hugged me briefly, whispering, "You were brave, though I couldn't tell if it was approval or pity." Mom didn't say a word. She simply walked past me, her perfume trailing behind, like smoke after a fire, and climbed into Dad's truck. Dad gave me a look, half weary, half proud, but said nothing. Then they were gone. The house was silent again. Just me, the faint hum of the refrigerator, and Muffin curled on the couch as if nothing had happened. I stood at the window and watched their taillights fade down the street, my chest heavy with something I couldn't name. Relief maybe, but also grief. Because even though I'd finally spoken my truth, I knew something had shifted in a way that couldn't be undone. For the next week, the silence stretched. No calls, no texts, not even the passive-aggressive family updates group chat Mom loved to run like a newsletter. At work, I caught myself checking my phone between patients, half expecting an apology that never came. At night, I wandered the house aimlessly, pausing in each room, as if reminding myself, this is yours. You fought for this, but the victories tasted hollow when there was no one to share them with. It was Savannah who kept me afloat. She stopped by with takeout, made me laugh when I wanted to cry, reminded me that choosing myself didn't make me selfish. You're building a new story, she told me. And maybe they're just not ready to read it yet. But one evening, as I was closing the blinds, I noticed a figure parked across the street. The same truck, the same silhouette. James. He wasn't coming in? He wasn't even calling, just sitting there, engine running, staring at my house. I didn't know if it was guilt or anger or something else entirely. But one thing was clear, this wasn't over. The dinner had ended, yes. But the war for what family really meant had only just begun. The next night, I didn't wait for him to sit in his truck like some silent sentinel. I marched outside barefoot on the cold pavement and knocked on his window. James jumped, then rolled it down, his face tight with exhaustion. Bryn, I didn't want to bother you. You already are, I said, folding my arms. So either come inside or tell me what the hell you're doing, parked outside my house every night. He hesitated, then killed the engine and followed me in. Inside, he stood awkwardly by the door, eyes roaming over the walls, the pictures the glow of my carefully chosen lamps. Finally, he sank into a chair, like the weight of his own body was too much. I don't know where to start, he said. Try the truth. For a long time, he just stared at his hands. When he spoke, his voice was low, stripped of the arrogance he usually carried. The business is worse than Amber told you. Dad's company is drowning. Contracts dried up, we're over-leveraged, and I've been taking loans to keep payroll going. If it weren't for Amber's salary, we'd already have lost the house. The golden boy mask cracked right there in front of me. My brother, always the star, always the one held up against me, like a mirror of what I wasn't, looked terrified. Why didn't you just say something, I asked? His laugh was bitter. Because I'm not supposed to fail. Not me. I'm the one Mom brags about. I'm the one Dad trusts with the family name. If I admit I can't handle it, then what's left, you, Paige? You think they'd survive knowing the perfect son is a fraud? The words cut deeper than I expected. He wasn't just talking about himself, he was admitting what they'd all believed about me. I swallowed hard. You think I'm not capable, that I couldn't possibly hold this family together if you slipped. James finally met my eyes. His own were bloodshot. Bryn, you've always been the one who could stand on your own. You never needed anyone. That scares Mom more than you realize. She doesn't know how to love what she can't control. For the first time, I saw it not as an excuse, but as a twisted truth. Maybe Mom's control wasn't about power alone. Maybe it was about fear. Fear that if I proved I could live without them, they'd lose me. I sat down across from him. Then maybe the real problem isn't that I don't need you. Maybe it's that you can't stand the thought of needing me. His face crumpled just for a second before he pulled it back together. Maybe you're right. The silence between us wasn't hostile this time. It was raw, heavy, honest. And for the first time in years, I didn't see James as the golden boy. I saw him as my brother, flawed, scared human. The uneasy truce with James didn't last long. 2 days later, my phone lit up with Mom's name. I should have ignored it, but something in me, the old habit of obedience, made me answer. Brinley Marie, what did you say to your brother? Her voice was sharp, stripped of the sugary concern she usually coated her anger with. I told him the truth. I said that he doesn't have to carry everything alone. She hissed into the phone. You think you understand, but you don't. Your brother has a reputation, a responsibility. You don't get to go around planting doubt in his head when he's already under enough pressure. Mom, I interrupted, my patience thinning. He's not a child. He's drowning, and you're pretending it's fine. He came to me, not you. The silence on the line was colder than any words. Then she spoke with a venom that caught me off guard. Of course he came to you. You've always wanted to tear him down. You've resented him since high school. Don't think I don't see it. You enjoy watching him struggle because it makes you feel superior for once. The accusation stung like a slap. That's not true, and you know it. I love James. I want him to succeed. But he's human. Mom, he doesn't have to be your perfect son forever. You don't get it, she snapped. This family needs someone who can carry the weight. If James falters, what do we have, Paige? You don't make me laugh. My chest burned. You'd rather see him collapse under the weight than admit that maybe, just maybe, I've been stronger than you gave me credit for a click. She hung up. The fallout came quickly. That weekend, she staged what I can only describe as an intervention. I came home to find Dad's truck, James's Silverado, and Paige's Subaru all crammed into my driveway. Inside, Mom sat at my kitchen table like she owned the place, flanked by the rest of the family. We need to talk, she said, her tone making it clear this wasn't a request. I glanced around my own house, my sanctuary, and felt that old tremor of rage. Funny. That's what I've been saying for months. But every time I try, you barge in with keys that aren't yours, opinions I didn't ask for. And now? What is this, a tribunal? James wouldn't meet my eyes. Paige looked like she wanted to sink into the floor. Dad gave me a pleading glance, the classic peacemaker. And Mom, she leaned forward, her nails tapping on my table. You're dividing this family, Brinley, with your secrets, with your stubbornness, with your house. We are here to make decisions as a family, together. My laugh was sharp, bitter. Decisions about my life, my money, my home. No, that's where this ends. Mom's face hardened. Then don't come crying to us when it all falls apart, because it will. And when it does, don't expect us to save you. Her words hung in the air like a curse. And as I stood there, gripping the edge of my counter to keep from shaking, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't about the house anymore. This was about control, about Mom's need to orchestrate every detail of our lives, even if it meant breaking us apart. I had a choice, Ben, or finally break free. Thanks for staying until the end. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments below.